G'day everyone, welcome to this week's Life on the Hulls, and as you can see the boat has had a massive cleanup and there's a good reason for that. Janet and I are going to take a couple of weeks off and knock off across the Dutch and see our daughter Ellen in New Zealand, and we're really looking forward to it. We haven't seen her for quite a few months. We've removed all the tools and everything out of the boat, and for the first time it actually looks like a clean boat. Now this week we're going to be dealing with the hard top and up around that coaming around our winch platform that we put in earlier. So don't forget to like, don't forget to subscribe, and share it out, guys. We really appreciate it. And don't forget to watch all of the video. That really helps us with our metrics with YouTube. Alright, so I've got to glass the base here, or the underneath support for the uprights, the stainless uprights. I've already done this side, laminated this one up. Now I've put in 8 layers of 600 double bias in here to make it around probably about 8mm thick. That's solid glass now all the way through, and that'll be more than enough. There will be a support on the top as well, but you don't want to be supporting these with foam core because you don't want any compression with the foam, so it's got to be solid, and then there will be a base on the top as well. So I've had to make up a couple of flat base plates just to level out these support bases. It's already about 8mm thick, but then I've added these extra base plates here just to level it out so I don't have the bracket on an angle. I'm going to epoxy them in place. Got another one over here, and this one here. Be glued up under there. You can see here it's actually, sorry, that way. It's actually creating a level base for my uprights. Very important. This will then be filled, and then 1 or 2 more layers of glass over the top of that just to tidy it up and make it disappear. Although we made every effort when we laid up the hard top to sand and clean up the surface, including peel plying the entire surface, upon closer inspection it required a further complete detail with firstly an orbital and then a flexi sander to reveal the best surface. Even then it wasn't to be enough, and multiple coats of flow coat were required to bring it to a nice finish. Possibly the hardest job of all is overhead sanding, and for days this has gone on and took its toll on my shoulders. I now see many boat building channels with this still to come, and seriously sympathise with anyone that has to do this task, particularly on the massive surface area of a catamaran ceiling. So I'm going to do a couple of little bits to tidy up. I've got some brushed gel coat here. I'm just going to basically start to whiten these areas here. I'm not going to put it on too thick, but it's a brush gel, so I'll be able to paint it on, and then what I'll do is I'll actually sand it back and use it as a bit of an initial fairing compound before I go to fairing. But this area here between the door and the roof, I intend to basically just paint from here forward, and we'll start with that, and then we'll keep going on later on. I'm going to brush eventually all of the joints, because they're all been sanded back and they're reasonably fair, but they won't be fair until I finish, but then I'm going to roll it eventually. Alright, so you get a little bit of material on here now. It's not thick. I'm going to come back and back it up with a little bit more, but what it does is it actually fills in a lot of the pinholes that you've got there, and then ultimately the fairing is going to be a lot easier. I'm going to essentially put in a fairing compound once I send this down and work out all my levels, make sure everything's straight and fair, but for now that's actually a good start to an otherwise very ugly piece of the boat, and it's actually already starting to look 100% better. The thing with brushing gel coat too is you can really concentrate on actively filling any of the little pinholes that you find. Okay, just give me a sec. I'm just putting on a quick layer.
Been watching it for years.
You're gonna be sanding this bastard off. So I'm working away, gel coating up here, and guess who shows up? We've got Paul here from the Central Coast. How are you, mate?
Good, mate. How are you?
Oh, very, very well. What's the story?
It's good. Just down the coast, and thought I'd drop in and say hello.
been down surfing, I think, down the south coast.
down
So
the south coast,
I tend to be en route to, en route, I should say, because when I say route, it's something else. But I tend to be en route from all the holiday destinations, and I love it when the guys like this show up. And yeah, he's a keen camper van restorer, so watch out. He's got a couple for sale, I think. Have you, mate?
Nearly, yeah, soon. Yeah.
Good on you, mate. So what's the story? What do you think of this?
I love it, mate. I want to come down and do some work for you. I want to help you out.
I like that.
Do some TIG welding, hopefully.
I love slave labour. I've got plenty of, I use anyone that's free. No, I'm more than happy to pay you for any sort of work.
Alright, yeah.
Good on you, mate. Brilliant. Alright, well, have a great trip home.
Good stuff. No
See
worries.
ya. Catch ya.
Thanks, mate.
Right, I've been busy just stripe coating all the edges here, and what this does, it actually highlights the imperfections, such as this here. And this is all going to have to be detailed, sanded. There's quite a lot of imperfections here, but getting that first layer of gel coating, I put a quick brush of flow coat over the top just to seal it, and that enables me to be able to sand it down in a couple of days. But here I can actually see where I need to use a fairing tool just to get these perfect surfaces here before I do a final spray and apply some texture to this. Now this will be smooth from here to here, but then from here along the roof here I'm going to have a texture roll-it effect, and a bit like what they'll do on the Seawind 1260, you know, a slight texture is not a problem. I've done all around the coaming here, and it's on pretty thick, so it gives me plenty of material to work with all the way around here. But even around this winch plinth, I mean, it's starting to really look the business. It's going to take a lot of work to get it down to how I've got it here on the helm here, and then ultimately good polishing as well is going to be the order of the day. But yeah, basically getting all of the material on here and then getting it sealed is really the key. I'm pretty ready for the green to disappear. I've been staring at that for 14 months since we laid up this hard top, and Janet decided to come to work, so I thought I'll put it to work. What have you been doing all week?
I've been enjoying my company of your mum.
Yeah, looking after Bet. Good on you. Righto, so this is it. It's all been stripe coated, and I've got plenty of material on there. It's not quite thick enough yet to call it done, and I'm going to do a quick roll. We'll get a bit of a texture on it, and then we'll sand a lot of it off, but it's the best way for me to do it. It's reasonably fair, but we're actually going to end up with a textured roll surface on here, I think, eventually. So let's just see how we go. So I've got Janet mixing the all-important flow coat, which is gel coat mixed with about 5% wax and styrene. So what that does, it gives a layer that'll rise to the surface and then suffocate the gel coat and let it set. But you look here, it does thin it out somewhat with the styrene, and can make it a little yellow if you have too much, so that needs a bit more, I think. Yeah, just got to keep stirring it, and we're going to then decant this. That's more than enough to do this whole hard top, hopefully. Alright, catalysing. You ready? Yep. Well, it's going to be bloody awful, this stuff. It's going to drip everywhere, but that's life. Happy?
Yeah.
Looks a bit different, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Thank God. I mean, I know it's still rough, but it's going to sand down.
Rough, but you can kind of feel like what it's going to be like when
Yeah.
we're on it.
Yeah, no, I'm very, very happy just to get some light.
Very exciting.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
cool.
the green gets to you after a while. This is going to be really...
Oh, massive. It's fantastic. Actually, Darren was saying the other day with he's got clears on the back here. He said you could get away with just having mesh because you've got an overhang, whereas theirs ends about here, and they can't quite cover the back. They haven't got a lounge slit there, but no, that's great.
Awesome.
Thanks for all your help.
No worries.
And there it is, guys. At least it looks right now. From the massive job of the hardtop spray up to the micro level jobs, it's what keeps us going, and being able to interlace large jobs with the smaller one makes the whole job a lot more interesting. The helm station was next on the agenda, as it needs to be sanded to a reasonable fair surface before I apply a brush consistency of white flow coat to the integration areas. Once again, allowing for some filled resin gives the ability to prepare for a final spray up, which will come a long way down the track.
For the last 18 months since I demolded the deck, I've been deliberating as to what I'm going to do with my molds. I've had them for sale for about a year and a half now, and we've tried everything to try to sell it. We've tried eBay and Gumtree and all the things here in Australia, and to be honest, when I bought it, had I known the logistical nightmare of bringing a mold 1500 k's down to where I live by road, I probably would have balked as well. And I had a couple of guys buy it off me, and essentially they had to pull out. So it's come time, and currently I'm paying a lot of rent to store this mold. It's come time to cut it up. So this is the deck, obviously under the back here, and you'll be aware or remember me slaving away in a tent in here. This is going to get cut up. I'm going to use a 9-inch grinder with a diamond wheel to slice it up, flat pack it all. The steel will go away for free. The fiberglass, well, I'm going to have to pay to get rid of that. It's probably going to cost me $4,000 or $5,000 to get rid of it, I'd imagine. I'm going to basically scrap it, and yeah, and when you're paying rent on something, you just can't, you've got to make a call at some point. Right now, it costs me about $5,000 a year to store the molds. Not ideal. So right now I'm at a point where I've got to get rid of it. It's sending me to the point of distress that this thing is always in the back of my mind. So I'm going to spend today slicing it up, and hopefully get the majority of it cut up in the next few hours, and then I can start to work on breaking down the steel with a plasma cutter and a grinder, and then obviously the steel will go away for free, but I'm more concerned about the fiberglass. And it's Sunday, I just want to make as much noise and dust as I can today, so that tomorrow when the guys come into work they don't have to deal with it. Anyway, I'm going to get into it.
Well, it's very important to remember that under here is a lot of steel, so I have to make some pretty arbitrary lines as to where I cut this. I'm going to slice it lengthways all the way to here, here, another one over there, another one over there. That gives me 5 panels, stuff that'll come off pretty easily. It is still attached underneath. I don't want to be unattaching anything until I get this out, but at least that way I can start to break it down into some smaller components. It's going to be an absolute shit of a job, and Janet's going to come up and just supervise while I cut once I get started. I'll get started now and she can come up a bit later. But what I'll do is I'll cut these lengthways, then I'm going to slice it across, drop this onto the ground and work my way back. Anyway, let's get into it. Just got back from having a lunch break. I think I'm gonna cry. That is bullshit. Cutting this up, you know, that's hard work, and it's just so unnecessary. If someone just had the balls to buy it off us, you know, I was sort of hoping to see more of this boat, but you know, these things go out of fashion, plastic boats, and that's just the reality of it. And yeah, I'm sort of regretting buying the Mould a little, just a little bit. I mean, really, what it cost us to buy, transport, move down would have been a good set of plans for a cat. So, you know, I got the plan pretty much handed to me on a silver platter for the price of some paper with the Mould. But now I've got to deal with it, and yeah, it's a pretty brutal affair. As you can see, I'm in a world of hurt. Here's a lot of fiberglass. In fact, most of it's not fiberglass, most of it is wood. So there's so much plywood in this Mould, but I've cut it into sort of manageable sections. I'm sort of hoping I can fit all of these on a car trailer and get them to the tip. They're pretty heavy. I mean, that's probably going to be a fair amount of money. It's $450 a ton to get rid of per 1,000 kilograms. So I reckon I've probably got at least probably $2,000 here worth, and probably the same again on the hull. Maybe a little bit more on the hull, but anyway, the steel's not going to go. But anyway, I'm going to get in, I'm going to cut down here, get this section all sliced up, and then I'll start to think about up here, you know, because this area here is going to take a lot of work. It's got a lot of contorted curves and everything. It's not all flat, so it's going to need a little bit of work to cut it away, and then just get it all collapsed onto the ground, and then I can deal with it in sections at a time. Yeah, I'm wrecked. I've been going for 4 hours this morning. I did another 4 hours on Sunday, so it's Tuesday morning. It's Anzac Day today, so it's a public holiday, and I'm just getting in, and I'm going to have to hose down the entire site when I'm done here because I've got dust everywhere.